Ruger SR22.
Alright, here we are at the table. So, looking at this SR22, okay, there's a lot of things I like about it, and there's a lot of things I don't like about it. I'll tell you right now, the number one complaint I have with this pistol is the trigger. Okay, it's quite possibly the worst trigger I've ever had on a pistol. That being said, I still think it's a little bit better than a Glock pistol trigger. Like a factory, maybe like a Glock Gen 3 trigger. I would put this pretty comparable to that. Now, my main gripe with the trigger on this is the double action is basically unusable. Okay, if I take this and I try and hold it on target, let me get this in picture here. Okay, even with a good slow trigger pull, once that trigger gets to the release point, it's really tough to hold that pistol in alignment, and you get a fair amount of movement downward because the brake is so heavy. Now, that is also the case in single action. However, in single action, it's more manageable. Okay, in single action, if you train yourself, you can get pretty decent with it. Now, that being said, I'm definitely giving this thing a trigger job because it's still just atrocious, and I blame it on the magazine safety. I haven't had much opportunity to talk about this before, but I absolutely detest magazine safeties. I think that they are pointless, and I've never had a gun with a mag safety that I thought the trigger was good on. Now, on the positive side, I do like the mechanical safety. I'm a big proponent of manual safeties. I know a lot of people probably give me some guff for that, but that's just what my preference is. It makes it so that you have control over your firearm beyond just putting your finger on the trigger. I like having something extra there that can help me out. Now, what's nice about this one is it's also a decocker. So when I put this on safe, it decocks the hammer, which does have a firing pin block, so it is drop safe. Okay, and it makes the trigger totally dead. Right, trigger's totally disconnected. Okay. Same deal there. So that is a very nice safety feature. Okay. For those of you who practice using the slide stop as a slide release, you probably won't like this too much because the slide release, or the hold open lever on this, is not very good. It's not very positive. It's tough to get your thumb on it, and it's kind of slick compared to the safety. This isn't an issue for me because I am a slingshot person. I practice slingshotting the slide whenever I'm using a gun. So for me, it's not a big deal. Okay, the sights are excellent. Okay, I do quite like the sights, and I'm not normally a fan of 3-dot setups, but this one is excellent. I believe the front sight is aftermarket True Glow, but I'm not 100% certain because this was some sort of dealer special that I bought used. I don't know which distributor it was. I think it might have been Tallow, but I'm not 100% certain. Came with 2 mags from my local guy that I go to, who always treats me very well. So I do have to say the gun shot very well. As far as ergonomics, okay, ergonomics are pretty good. Okay, it's definitely not a CZ, but it does feel pretty good in the hand. I have pretty large hands. I'd say I'm on the gorilla hand side of things compared to most people. These do come with 2 different size grips. This has the larger one on it, which for me is just barely big enough. I kind of wish that Ruger would give one more size up just to fit my hand better. But that being said, it's still perfectly serviceable and comfortable to shoot. It points well, and no issues there. Mag release, nice and easy to operate, doesn't get in the way. Okay, it is ambidextrous. Okay, same with the safety. And I found that the accuracy was quite good. So overall, very impressed. Disassembly is very easy. Okay, this just has a takedown lever right here in the trigger guard. So once I take that down, all I have to do is I just bring it back, and release forward. Okay, it is not a captive recoil spring and guide rod, so that is something that I find a little irritating, especially because the sizing on this, as you can see right now, this is a little bit more difficult than usual because of the, I've got my arms wrapped around the camera here, but you can kind of see here that guide rod and everything. If things had been, the geometry had changed just a little bit, this would be a lot easier to take care of. When I'm not on camera, it does go back together quite easy, but still, I would have preferred something that was captive. What's going on here? There we go. Okay, reassembly is just the same thing as disassembly. Okay. Okay. Mags are pretty decent quality, though I've noticed that on both of these, part of the thumb press for sliding is broken off on both of the mags that I have with this gun. Okay. Other than that, I'd say it's pretty good. So let's do it. I'm going to walk you through the trigger here. Okay. So as I pull on this, okay, let's see what I get. I get a little bit of take up, and then it gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, and now I'm really squeezing, and then it breaks. Okay, that's the double action. Now single action, I get a lot of take up, but it breaks pretty clean. Okay, nowhere near as heavy as the double action. Okay, now let's try the trigger reset. Okay, this is another thing that I kind of have an issue with on this gun, is the reset is very, very long. Okay, goes right there's the reset. Okay, it's almost the full stroke. And I did notice while I was shooting once or twice that I didn't fully release the trigger enough, and that stopped me from taking my next shot while we were on the range. So that is one thing I have a complaint about. Now, on the good side of things, considering that this is a 22 and you're not exactly using this for self-defense, although it would be perfectly serviceable if you're someone who chooses to carry a small 22 for self-defense, my gut tells me that even though this trigger is pretty bad, it's a good way to train yourself on how to press the trigger properly versus jerking a trigger like so many people do. Because what I found while I was on the range is if I went too fast or too jerky on the trigger, my shots would get thrown really far. But if I got used to that brake and that trigger and I got good at holding myself on target, it would do really quite well, and I was getting very good groups. So let me bring those up and we'll round it up. Okay, so for our test run for this particular range session, I did about 150 rounds of Aguila 22 Super Extra 40 grain copper plated. Okay, nothing too crazy. And I do have to say, I quite like this ammo. It feeds very well. It's very clean burning. And in general, I really do like Aguila products, especially their 45 auto. I particularly like that stuff. So, that being said, let's go through the targets here. Okay, this is my initial target as I was figuring out what the sight setup was. Okay, this was at, I believe, 35 feet, something like that. Okay, I wasn't really checking my range at that point. I just wanted to see where the impacts were versus my sight picture for windage. Okay, then This was at 50 feet. Okay, and you can see this is where I'm starting to figure out the trigger and figure some things out. Okay, as I did a couple of those rapid fire groups you saw in the video, you can see my group expanded, but once I figured out where I was hitting and I got my trigger under control, it did really good. Okay, this is definitely a very accurate pistol with that fixed barrel. And then here was one of my last targets once I'd started figuring stuff out. Okay, this was I don't remember how many rounds, but this one was at 50 feet, and I think that was a pretty good sized group. So as you can see, it's a very capable little gun, especially for the price point. So I'm going to say overall, Ruger SR22, definitely worth the buy. Right? Whether it's new or used, I happen to get this one used for a very good price. So, nice job, Ruger. Just fix that trigger for me, okay? I'm going to see if I can do a decent trigger job on this, but it doesn't look like it's a very serviceable trigger, so we will see if I can actually get down into the guts of it or not, and I'll do an update if I can. All right, thanks for watching.